As some of you may have guessed, in our family, we often remind us of the past so that we can be machazek ourselves for the present and future. In the Sefer Shilas and Shuvas, Eile Divrei Shmuel, these were the Shuvas that were found after the war and put together by Reb Pinchas Lynch Rosenbaum, the last Rav of Kishvar, the Klein Verdan, based on the Shilas and Shuvas. His father, Reb Shmuel, Hashem Yinakim Damoy, had answered in the 2.5 years that he was Rav of Klein Verdan before he was sent to Auschwitz. And I saw an interesting tshuva in the Sefer that although the Shaila does not have relevance to the Inyan of Chassan and Kala, but the Inyan that it talks about, we can learn from. The Inyan of Chalukas Beis HaMedrash. When members of a Beis Medrash, of a Kehila, pay membership, they have a common kitzvah, a budget, the fee, the membership fees to be a chaver, and the schuyos, the schusim that each chaver receives. So in Klein Verdan, unser Rezaidus and Babis, davened in the klois. A Beis Medrash, a street or two away from the Beis HaKnesses HaGadol of Klein Verdan, and in this klois were the Hasidish Eilim. And they davened with takonis, that to be a member, every family had to be stark, and how they dressed, and how they spoke, and what they wore by tefillah, gartluch, beards, payas, shmir Shabbos, the whole house of every family. And the Bacharim of the Klois felt that they needed them for themselves, sort of what in New York became known as like a pirchei, like a Ava Subanim, like a youth group, something that they can have for themselves. So they all of the Bacharim had organized a Chevras Kinyan Sfarim. And the Chevras Kinyan Sfarim used to meet in Davin in a side room of the Klois. That side room was the Cheder where my uncle Feta Yosef Hesh learned from his Rebbe, our Zaydi's older brother, Reb Shimon Yitzchak HaKohen Pearl, whom I'm named after. And this Chevras Kinyan Sfarim got strong, and they decided that they were going to make, they felt they're collecting money, that they should be moshel over what they do with the money, come out to be an independent kehila. And they went to ask the Rav of Klein Verdan what to do. And I'm not going to repeat over the whole tshuva, it's about 5 pages long, but 1 or 2 ideas that the Rav had mentioned in his tshuva seemed to pop out in my eyes, every other line. And then I started to understand his train of thought. His maskana was, they're not allowed to separate from the clays. His maskana was, but at the same time, the elders of the clays can't throw them out. They have to be shaymer, they have to make their achdus. They have to be mechazak each other. The roiv, you go with the roiv, stay with the klois, but the miyat can't be mafresh from the roiv, and the roiv can't be mean and throw out the miyat. They have to figure out how to work together. They have to make an achdus. And he mentions, and he brings this from the Marami Rotenberg on this particular nakuda. So I wondered, I didn't understand this whole inyan. Why was this question so important? A group of teenage boys in a klois, this shaila is worthy to make it into a sefer of shilas and shuvas. Shilas and shuvas were used to inyanim of halacha, of mamon, of kinyan, arachayim, hilchas nashim, hilchas nezikin, all the different more practical areas of halacha of everyday Jewish life. And then we're talking about a group of teenage boys in a klois. And then here is where I saw the relevance to this week's parsha. To answer the question, why were all these details, this minutia, so important? Because usually, to us, it sounds like petty club politics. In this week's parsha in Ekev, it says, "V'haya Ekev tishma'un, es hamishpatim ha'ele u'shmartem asisam osam." Rashi explains that if you are careful about even the most, what seems to be not so important, the kleine mitzvahs, as much as you are the groise mitzvahs, the more important ones, then the rest of the words of the pasuk will make sense, will happen. V'shamar Hashem Elokecha lecha es habris v'es hachesed asher nishba alav. That Hashem will keep the heskem, the agreement he made with Avraham Avinu. The Imre Shofar, Reb Shlomo Kluger from Brod, his name is known in our family because Untera Amos, before they came from Klein Verdun, came from Ustila. And our great Alta Zaydas were Hasidim, had a kesher with the Matei Ephraim, who was one of the more famous members of the Kloisenbrod. And he explains this inyan of making important to you for yourself the shmiras, the kiyam mitzvahs of even the minor mitzvahs, by learning Steiding Eis in the pasuk from Vayikavu, Shmartem es mishmartai levilti esois michukais hatoevais. And the pasuk says you have to keep, the Hashem is telling us, you have to keep what I've kept for you. You have to, and he explains that this is pshat in the Mishnah and Avos, to make a siyog l'Torah. You make a hedge, you make a fence, you don't come close. If you go out on the same way tourists go out on a trip to the Great Canyon or to some place where you see a nice view of the mountains and there's a fence, do you go right over to the edge? No. They put a fence 20 feet in. We make a siyag l'Torah. Our family were Hasidim. We're not only do we go lefnimish or asadim, but we don't even come. You don't come close to being Iver and Avera. And Hashem says that Reb Shlomo Kluger explains that if you are so careful with the small mitzvahs, you don't even come close to being over them. That's why we make a siyag l'Torah. And this is how we explain, we conclude with the pasuk, V'aya ekev tishma'un, if you listen to the small mitzvahs, if you keep them, mimekayim them, you make for yourself safeguards, you make yourself arrangements so that you don't come close in how you dress, in how you conduct yourself, in how you make a bias neman, and how you raise your children so that you don't even come close. Then the rest of the pasuk, V'shema Hashem Elokecha lecha es habris v'es hachesed asher nishba alav v'secha. Our Chassan and Kala are two very, very talented people. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was gebenched them with so many kishroinis. I'd like to give them a bracha by looking to see what is mashma from their names, begematria, and give them the bracha so that we can wish them how HaKadosh Baruch Hu can give them the koyach to utilize the kishroinis that Hashem gave them to build a bayis nemel lenetzach. Yoaya Sha'aba is gematria 326. And 326, considering the type of mishpacha where he comes from, is equal to ketzadik kechosid. Azoi zayin zaynis. Abbaleh has been known within his family to never getting less than 110 or 12 on any of his tests, Limudei Kaddish, Limudei Chol. From the age of 6, Yeshiva Gedaila, and college and law school. because his gematria 326, both of his names, is equal to l'laymed u'l'ma'ayin, to teach and to dig, to draw out. And in Yetz Hashem, when he finishes his studies and his chinuch, he'll be able to help his kehila l'madrach hatoiv, to guide the goodness. But we know that his roots of his family, and considering that he's excelled in his Limudei Kodesh, his name, believe it or not, 326 is equal to Maimar Chazal. And we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will watch over him and will consider him as he follows his Derech HaYashav HaTov, because 326 is also equal to Pakad Hashem Imoi. Hashem will always consider him with him. And he'll be included in his Kahal Ma'aminim, also 326. If we take his Kalanova Chasuda, Simona Uzit, and her name is equal to Gematria 664, we know that when this shidduch was concluded, her name 664, she understood Hu Yashar Be'enai, that her chassan was erlich in her eyes. And that among her very qualities, which made the shidduch a beautiful one, was that he tzenua b'ma'aseha, that she is modest in her deeds and actions, equal to the gematria of 664, her two names. And together with her and her parents, how they raised her to be an accomplished and honest person with integrity and erlichkeit kederach hakdoisha. So if we take their two names together, 664 plus 326, you come up with the gematria, the reason why we're celebrating today here tonight, V'simachtem lifnei Hashem, 990. And together also they will build by Yisrael the Das. And we know that when they were Shalom Bayas, in their Bayas Nemad be Yisrael, the Shechina Shur B'neiam, because 990 is equal to Melech Malchei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And tonight, as we sing, and as we bench, and as we are mechageg this wonderful simcha, we will thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu lahoidos ulahala l'shimcha gadol gematria 990.